This is your math gal, Julie Harland. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where all of my videos are organized by topic. We're going to continue doing some problems on simple interest, but in this video we're going to do these two problems where we're looking for the interest rate if we know the principal, the time, and the interest, either paid or owed or earned, whatever. So here is the first problem. 800 was borrowed on a credit card, that's sort of against the credit card, it's like a credit card loan, for 2 months. The interest owed was $32, so that's after 2 months. What was the interest rate? Can you bet it's going to be high? That's how credit cards get you. So when it wants the interest rate, I'm talking about the annual interest rate. So what do we know here? We know this formula, I equals PRT, and on the video so far, we're looking for the interest. Now we're looking for the rate, not the interest. So let's write down all these variables, I, P, R, and T. R is what we don't know because that's what it's asking for. What's the interest rate? But what was the interest? Right here, $32, that was the interest. What was the principal? How much was borrowed? $800. The rate we don't know. And what was the time? It was for 2 months. So remember, time needs to be given in years. So 2 months would be 2/12, which reduces to 1/6. So what we don't have here is the rate. The other important thing to remember is that when it asks for the rate, it's asking in terms of a percent. Okay? So let's put this in this formula. Interest, 32, equals the principal, which is 800, times the rate, times the time. So this is an equation we have to solve. Now there are different ways to solve this equation. Okay. One way is, let's simplify the right-hand side. We can reduce as well as we're multiplying the 800 times 1/6 if you want. So 2 goes into both of those numbers, right? So one way of doing this is writing 32 equals, now what does this mean? You have 400 times R times 1/3. Basically that's 400 R over 3. Or you could think of it as 400 thirds R. Okay? Both of them mean the same thing. So you might write it like that, or you might write 32 equals 400 thirds R. Okay? Let's take the first one, written this way, 32 equals 400 R over 3. You could write this as a proportion. In other words, let's put the equal sign here and write 32 as 32 over 1 and solve this using proportions. Okay? So I'm going to show you 2 ways that you might solve this problem. One is writing it as 32 over 1 equals 400 R over 3. The other one is the way I've shown you right here. Actually, I think I'm going to move this over just slightly. Okay, so let's do it both ways. If you're going to think of this as a proportion, then you could cross multiply. So remember, you can multiply those two together and it equals those two together. That works only if you have a proportion, right? You have one fraction equaling another fraction. So I have 1 times 400R equals 32 times 3. All right, can we do that in our head? 32 times 3, you could, or if you feel like it, just leave it as 32 times 3. And then we divide both sides by 400. So this will tell us what R is, but there's something important. Remember, R has to be given in terms of a percent. So you could simplify this first and then change it to a percent, or you could just do it right now. To get anything written as a percent, you just multiply by 100%. That's like multiplying by 1. It's not like you do it to both sides. You're just going to take this number here and multiply by 100%. And the reason I did that at this step is because It's kind of easier to put in your calculator. Just get rid of those two zeros, right? Divide top and bottom by 100. And now we've got 30. I don't even think I even need a calculator. Look at 32 times 3 over 4. The 4 goes into 32, right? 8. So I did this without a calculator. I didn't know that was going to happen, but convenient. I love not having to get my calculator out, 24%. So that's the rate. Now, if you wouldn't have done this times 100% and you used a calculator, 32 times 3 over 400, you would have gotten 0.24, and then you would have had to change 0.24 to 24%. Okay, other method. So you have 32 equals 400 thirds r. Remember another way to solve an equation when you have the coefficient of r is a fraction? You multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So that's the other way you could have done this. You can multiply both sides by 3 over 400. And you might notice that looks exactly like this other one. So then you've got 96 over 400 equals r. You could do the same thing. Use a calculator, divide that out, you're going to get 0.24 equals r, and then you're going to change that 0.24 to a percent, and you're still going to end up with 24%. So it really depends on which way you like to solve equations. That's what is so cool about algebra and solving equations. Not just one way to do it, not just one way to, figure out what the percent is, etc. So in this problem, this credit card problem, the annual percentage rate was 24%, very high. All right, here's our second problem. A 6-month loan of $50,000 accrued $2,050 in interest. What was the interest rate? Okay, so again, we know that interest is principal times rate times time. So let's see, interest, principal. We don't know what the rate is, so I'm going to not write. That's what we're looking for. And time. What are each of these? What's the interest? Okay, that's the $2,050. That's how much it accrued in interest. What was the principal? How much money did they take out? $50,000. And what was the time? 6 months. All right, 6 months in terms of a year, probably most of you know that's 1/2 or 0.5 because it's 6/12, which is 1/2 or 0.5, okay, equal. So you could think of that either way, 1/2 or 0.5 or 6/12. Okay, so let's do the same thing. We're trying to find the rate, and I'm just going to write something a little bit different here. Notice it doesn't matter because of the associative property if you could put PRT or you could put PTR. It's easier actually to put the variable last, put the R to the right. It looks kind of funny in the middle. Look back up at this previous problem. So I have the R in the middle. I could have written instead 800 times 1/6 times R. That probably would have looked a little bit simpler. So I'm going to write it that way here. So I'm going to plug in these numbers. Interest is the 2050. The principal is 50,000. The time is 1/2 or 0.5. I'm going to write it as 1/2 and then times R. Now it's pretty easy to take 50,000 times 1/2, so I'm going to do that. 2,050 equals, what's half of 50,000? 25,000 R. And so for this one to solve for R, we just go ahead and divide both sides by the 25,000. All right, so what's R going to be? Well, we want to put that in our calculator. 2050 divided by 25,000. So go ahead and get out your calculator and do 2050 divided by 25,000. And I got 0.082. But we have to remember we're looking for the percentage rate, right? So we have to change that to a percent and go multiply by 100%. So then that will give us 8.2%. Now, you could have written times 100% before you put it all in your calculator, right? So for instance, I always like to show you different ways. We had this over 25,000. You could have said times 100%, canceled out those two zeros, canceled out this zero, and then in your calculator, all you had to do was put in 205, just smaller numbers to input, 205 divided by 25. You're still going to get 8.2. So if you plugged it in this way, you're still going to get 8.2%. So it depends if you're going to take care of changing it to a percent at the end or sort of all at once here. All right, so those are two problems where you're looking for the rate if you're given the principal and the time and the interest. This is your Math Gal, Julie Harland. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where all of my videos are organized by topic.